And so now I'm fortunate enough to introduce you. Hello, Claire. I've heard about you and I'm glad to see you here in almost person. Welcome everyone to the Climate Healers 21st Vegan Convergence of the Peoples Gathering. I'm Rebecca Allen, and I am honored to introduce you to our amazing keynote this evening, Clare Mann. She's a vegan psychologist, existential psychotherapist, author, and communications trainer. She runs a private practice in Sydney, Australia, as well as working online with vegans all over the world. She's the author of numerous books, including Vystopia, The Anguish of Being Vegan in a Non-Vegan World, and Myths of Choice, Why People Won't Change and What You Can Do About It. Clare created the free Vegan Voices 30-day online training to help vegans communicate veganism and has several online programs, including Steps to Great Relationships for Vegans. Please welcome Clare Mann. Turn Vystopia into powerful change. Clare Mann. Well, Clare, we can't hear you. Oops. You're unmuted, but the microphone is not. Let's try again. Sorry, that's interesting. Nope, not yet.
Is there a mute on your earphones?
Oh, there it is. There she is. I think I heard her. Clare, are you there? Yeah, she's there. We can hear you, Clare.
Oh, here we go. Test microphone.
Yeah,
it's working. We can hear you. End.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me, Clare? Okay. No.
We can hear you.
Okay. But she can't hear us, Ken.
We can't hear her now, but we did momentarily. But she doesn't have to hear us, does she? Hello? Donna is giving us some good hand signals. Now, other people have had this trouble. Come on in and tell us what, Dr. Rao, haven't you had this trouble before?
Yeah.
She's got her earphones out. No, so now she's going to back in. Okay. Yeah. We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
There's a mute on her earphones. There's a mute on her earphones.
Oh, you did for a moment. That's great. Okay, wait 1 second.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Is that any?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, I can't. Can you say something?
Hello, hello, hello.
Because I can't hear you. That's very funny, isn't it? But you can hear me.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, it seems to be a little quiet that I can't hear you. I have to say, I've now just been admitted to. I really am a 50s housewife without a checkbook when it comes to technology, and usually my husband's around, but he has popped out, so I apologize for that. I really wish I could have been here for the last 2 days, but it would have been the middle of the night for me in Australia. It's very early morning here in Australia. But, you know, just from the very little time I've had to hear the comments, we're also on the same page. And I see such wisdom coming from this. And I'm hoping to get a chance to catch up with the ones afterwards. Yes, I am a vegan psychologist, author of Vistopia. And my job really, I guess, here today and in my work is to help people navigate that burden of knowing and transmute it into something positive. Because the power of it has the power to be part of the solution, which is what all of us want to do. I want all of us to eagerly anticipate every conversation about veganism or every action because we're calm, we're confident, and we're focused. Okay, now you no doubt you've had such an inspiring weekend this time, and you're probably feeling inspired, eager to be part of the solution, to put tools and techniques into play. But I just want you to stop for a moment and really reflect on how are you feeling here. Now it's pretty late at night there for many of you, so maybe you're a little tired, and maybe you are excited and you're eager to get on, but maybe there's a little doubt within you. Bit of fear, a bit of anxiety. Is it really going to happen? You know, it's great that Celeste is so positive and so is everyone else, but you know, are people going to change quick enough? You know, I'm seeing more people do X, Y, Z. Now, this isn't a bad thing, but it is, you know, a clue really, because these are signals of the things that are going to stand in the way of each of us, that self-talk, that mindset, that's going to stand in the way of us being the unique part of our solution, the solution to the problem, really. And all creators know, whether they're making a documentary, the wonderful Climate Healers initiative, a new product on the market, a new book, bringing a gift to the world, planning a relationship, whatever, they all know that it starts with mindset. And I think it was the late Bob Proctor, the sales trainer and manager, who said, whether you believe you can do it or you don't, either way, you're right. Okay, so I just want you to think about that for a moment. Now, I've been vegan 16 years. I was vegetarian for 30 years before. And like all of us, I wish I knew way back then what I know now. I would have been vegan on the spot. But I'm also challenging what a vegan is, because I realize I don't say I'm vegan, I say I'm becoming vegan. You know, Sebastian and Ray, Tammy, and others have contributed the little I've heard there of realizing we're learning as we go along. And, you know, this is very important. But I say originally I was an organizational psychologist, and for many years I worked in large organizations, big corporations, many of which I would not work in today. And often we have prejudice against those large organizations, feeling they are the seeds of all the problems, and the greed, the initiatives that are abusing our planet, people, animals. But the reality is there's a lot of good people working in these places. And one, I'm going to apologize for any tapping or banging here. I'm in the middle of outback Australia almost, and it's a little bit very windy here today. But for those large organizations, if people go onto LinkedIn as a social media platform, there's just one group there that I'm part of, which is Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management. There are 5,000 members, and they're like the French Resistance. They're in these places of sometimes seemingly darkness, that are rolling out amazing initiatives. They're doing the things that they need to do in the specific places in which they live. And this is really important, because I want to give you an example. About 2012, I think it was, just I guess, or in fact a little earlier than that, I hadn't quite become vegan. I was in an office for KPMG. Now, KPMG is one of the top 5 accountancy firms in Australia, but probably the world. Okay. And I was coaching someone there, and they told me about this story that I hope inspires you. It's the story about the little plastic spoon. And the little plastic spoon story is, there was a woman who went into the tea room and got her coffee or tea, and she realized a new policy had been made to save time so people could be more productive. They had changed from using metal spoons to plastic spoons, because all these seconds or these minutes could be saved when people didn't have to stir their tea, wash it under the tap, put it in the dishwasher or whatever. They could just swizz the tea with a plastic spoon and then throw it in the bin. Okay, and she was observing this, so she did a back of the envelope calculation and worked out how many people were in the organization, how many used the room, how many times they had coffee or tea each day, how many plastic spoons were being used per hour, per day, per week, per month, per year. And she went to the ideas committee with a shocking statistic of how many so the spoons were being used. And she asked, you know, we need to change this, because we have all these recycling initiatives, sustainability, looking at our supply chains, etc. But what are we doing here? And they said, well, what would you like to do? We'd like to do a survey. We want to talk to the staff. And overwhelmingly, they said, there's no way we should go back to metal spoons. And within a shorter period of time, it was rolled out across Australia, they went back to using metal spoons. The question is, what is your little plastic spoon? And from everything you've done this weekend, it's you choosing. Almost like Gandhi said, if you think something small can't make a difference, try going to bed with a mosquito tonight. Okay. I know I can't see all your faces, but I can see Rebecca, yours. Yeah, I'm glad you can hear me. Now, we've all heard, of course, if you want to change the world, we have to change ourselves. These lofty, sort of broad sort of terms. Well, what does that look like? But it is actually true, of course. So if we want a responsible, happy, creative, kind, proactive, open-minded, loving vegan, then we have got to start today, as Tammy reminded us and Celeste did, that we've got to donate a responsible, happy, creative, kind, proactive, open-minded, loving vegan in every aspect of our lives. Because when I did, and I've worked over many years, over 30 years as a psychologist, and I've seen hundreds, thousands of people, probably in groups and individuals, and a lot of enormous amount of vegans, which is I've been able to do a lot of research from to hopefully help us, is often people come, well, definitely people come and we dig around for a while trying to find out the source of their agony. Often with vegans, they know the source of the anguish, but like all of us, we all have all the normal problems of life, and then we just throw Vystopia, the burden of knowing, on top of this, and a call to action, of course. But often people said, well, I started working with you and I've been doing some different things. My family have changed, but I don't even see them. How is that possible? Okay, now often in the interactions, of course, we know we can't change people, but when we change ourselves, the dynamic changes. But it's not just in the interactions, it's energetically. We are giving out to the whole. I love this social ecology approach that we are all, it's a systemic, organic, unfolding process. You know, the most biggest polluting element on this planet is people's attitudes, really. But often people say that, but I'm reminded of the late writer, beautiful writer, Mark Twain. He said, I left home at 17, and when I went back at 21, I couldn't believe how much my father had grown up. I think that says it all, doesn't it? But it is so true, is, you know, if we're going to be, we are the vehicle for change, each of us, we're like little lights all over, and a rising tide raises all boats. We don't have to do the whole lot. And I see a lot of, and people probably of similar vintage to me on this call, is we've been around a few decades. We also realize that we have to be part of this global relay race, this lifting of consciousness to reach a tipping point. Because in whatever rendition of life they're at, is a lot of people follow. That's what they're doing at the moment. And I think Tammy's right. People are absolutely overwhelmed. They don't have any space for this. And then we throw something else on. So let's invite them back to their vegan birthright, what they have chosen to forget, the solution to their own problems. So I said a little bit earlier that I've really stopped saying that I'm vegan. And there's a number of reasons for that. And when we look at communication in a moment, relationship-based advocacy, and tools and techniques you may already be using, but hopefully I'll bring something else to bear, is there's a reason for that. We assume that other people know or really know what it is, and I'm still discovering it. But I say I'm becoming vegan, particularly when I hear and talk to vegans of been vegan 50 years, and they say, you know what, the more I find out, the less I know. Like everything in life, of course. We know it's so much more than a diet. But of course, it's also not just about not using and exploiting animals, non-human animals. What about not using or exploiting ourselves, as we are expressions of consciousness? Being kinder to other human animals, wherever they are, whatever their actions, their behaviors, and the earth on which we live. It's a constantly unfolding process, because I really see people these days as pre-vegan becoming pro-vegan. Now, Celeste and I are part of an initiative, Ubuntu Veganism in India, and we're doing some talks there. And this lovely young man, Abhinav, he's only about 28 years old, and I believe he runs set up the first vegan cafe in Calcutta. He doesn't say it's vegan, but he just reminded me, I won't say out of the mouths of babes and sucklings, although he does call me mother. He said, Claire, it's not about non-vegan or vegan. It's pre-vegan to pro-vegan. Non-vegans care enormously about other animals, sometimes their own animal, their own children, their companion animals, exotic animals. We just need to expand that window of compassion and care to all living beings, and to encourage the vegans too, to expand it to the non-vegans, not yet vegans. See, a few habits there with bananas. I love that in that initiative, Ray, but what a wonderful example. Let's use that in all sorts of things. But it's really, what is standing in the way is our beliefs, our values, our beliefs about what is possible, our value, our unconscious drivers, from our own history, our own experiences, our own traumas. They come into play. And how do we find out about those? It's often through our self-talk, our language, our typical reactions to things. You know, we really, all of this has a potential to inhibit, you know, us being part of this bigger part of change. And so briefly, in the very little amount of time, and I'm really aware of time because I really want to open it up for questions. I'll talk only probably for 20 minutes or so. It's about putting our own house in order. That is the most we can do by donating that shining light in many ways, is a little bit of neuroscience. I always think neuroscience and science full stop catches up with common sense, okay, is a little bit to bring to bear that actually we can't be out there advocating with a smile on our face if we are resentful in our hearts, because people not only pick it up, but things happen in their brains and their bodies that inhibit the potential for them to hear. Okay, so we do have to be the change we need to see. And then to remind you, or to hopefully offer some new things, is relationship-based communication, relationship-based advocacy. So let's look, in the short time I've got, at putting your own house in order. Is think about something in your life. And if you had a chance to watch the little clip that Tammy asked me to do, and I believe it came out, I ask you, you know, are there things in your life, or have been in your life, when you, maybe a period in your life when you kept attracting a certain thing, a certain coworker, and you go, I can't believe it, I've changed jobs and this type of person is still there. It's as if that person I had a problem with comes back, or they're just like my dad or my sister-in-law or something. Or you keep attracting something that you only get so far, and then you financially get challenged again, and just when you were feeling abundant. What's going on here? Or attracting a partner when and if you were looking for a romantic partner and you go, gosh, it starts off well, and then suddenly they're like the previous, whatever. And it really was Carl Jung who said, we'll put down to chance and bad luck, things that happen to us, until we actually see that, you know, we have a part to play in who and what we attract in our lives. And so we might say that about vegan groups as well, is when people join groups or potlucks, or whether it's outreach, vigils, talks, speaking at Rotary meetings, constantly, you know, putting the information out there. If we find that we keep attracting someone perhaps a little overbearing, you know, too controlling or something, what is it within us that has co-created that? That's very much an existential approach, of course. We're not just this person with personality and interests and things like the Psychologist. I think a little blindly sometimes like to think that we're this little package of thing that comes out and might change over time, and we can change our behavior, but our core is we are co-created. You know, the only Tammy I know is Claire, and the only Claire Celeste knows is Celeste. We are co-created in that sense. But if you keep doing that, it's really, these are clues to, you know, what do I need to change if I'm not getting the results I want to get? And it really was Sigmund Freud, although I'm not really a Freudian, who said something, and I seen it in my own life, I see it continually. He said, we keep attracting a similar situation to get a different outcome. Well, some people might say that was madness, but he really said we're self-healing creatures. And Tammy said it. She said, these people are here to heal us. They hold up mirrors to us, and we do the same to them. Freud said, you know, things happen to us when we don't have as much agency, when we're young people, we're children, and we so want to belong and connect, that harmful things happen to us, where we're verbally abused or shamed or embarrassed, or more, you know, strongly abused in some way. And it's so painful that we put it deep down, we push it down. But then we find in life we keep attracting those things. Is it bad luck? Freud would say is that we are attracting the opportunity to rechange that. Now, we can't change it in the present, though. You have to sort whatever was happening, that initial source of the pain. And unlike Sigmund Freud, we don't need 25 years of psychotherapy, but we do need to make conscious what those conscious drivers are. And for us as vegans, we have been called into a world, we are strangers in strange lands. It's so very true. So how do we change this? Now, firstly, we have to become a self-detective, I always think, is we are works in progress. Often we've had challenges that have happened to us that are so damaging and harmful that we seek out counselling or psychotherapy. And I've certainly been through my own many years, not only in my training, but in my own journey to become that. But it's really learning from others. It's being at events like this. It's learning to be humble as well, reading lots of books. For many young people, that art has been lost, and yet we are so much more present when we read books. We can discover there's a lot of positive psychology out there and spiritual practices that we can do. We need to become the self-detective. The self-talk, what are the words that go through our minds? These are all clues. And sometimes we need to get help, but we need to do something about it. Because all the people we see do what we consider to be great things, and all of us are doing great things, by the way, whether we're doing the most worthy of jobs is bringing up a family and influencing the next generation, and teaching people how to be in society around a dinner table, or we have documentaries, or on the world stage, or where we bring products to the world. All of us have gifts, and there is no comparison here, nor there should be. Is all the people we see do things that seem to do it seamlessly. We've all found a way to invest in that strong foundation every day. And it really is going back to the basics. And, I'm reminding of you of things here, but hopefully I'm going to add a little bit more. The routines and habits we have every day. It goes without saying, a whole food plant-based diet. The microbiome in our stomachs probably contribute about 80% of our serotonin, our happy hormones. And so I'm sure a lot of us have these things in place or of a certain age and time in life, but for so many younger vegans, they don't. And yes, they like a lot of the processed foods or whatever, but it is facilitating that process to be plant sourced and the energy from the earth, that part of that connection. Having adequate exercise. I was listening, and I always invest every year in the Food Revolution Network, and listening to Michael Clapper talk about the blue zones, where people seem to be healthier and live longer. And they're not all vegan, of course, but although many are, is they have far more fruits and vegetables and beans, and they also have community. And they have lots of these things, but their exercise is in everyday life. It's walking, it's gardening, it's building, it's connecting. They're not going to the gym and doing something they don't like. They play tennis, they do things, and it's very much part of that to celebrate life in many ways. But also make sleep is so important, and people often don't notice that. And I know quite a bit about sleep actually, and there's different stages that we go through in sleep. And tell me, perhaps I'm telling people already things they know, but there's some really cool stuff that if it's not for ourselves and we have this in place, we have to understand the people we're advocating to. Because often if they're overstressed and they're working 3 jobs and they're doing all sorts of things, they wouldn't have had adequate sleep. All mammals need between 7.5 to 8 hours. Probably if we get older, maybe it's a little bit more. And we go through different cycles of sleep. And if we have less sleep, say we only have 6 hours and we need longer, when we get in the car, we might as well have had a glass of wine. Our reaction times are that affected. But also we cannot read the non-verbal clues of what people are saying. Now, if people are sleep deprived too, we have to be really explicit in our communication and pick this up through the engagement, through kindness, because they will push back against this change of which way to peel the banana, okay? But there's also something really cool that happens at about the 3rd stage of sleep. And if we go through these cycles, and they're repeated over time, and particularly our REM sleep picks up a little bit as it goes through the end of each cycle. But about the 3rd level of sleep, the top of the spinal column opens, and it puts a fluid across the brain to process emotional reactions. And that's why, of course, our grandmother said, if you sleep on it tonight, the problem will be less tomorrow. Again, science catches up with common sense. But this is really cool because that's why people who have been severely traumatized, and a lot of people working in particularly the animal advocacy space, and undercover work and do the enormously powerful documentaries that are available to us that have woken so many of us up. you know, they become so traumatized that the serotonin wakes them up in the middle of the night. They're not having that process. Nature knows best. You know, Mother Nature didn't mess it up. So revisiting these things, of course, making time for learning, for reading, for fun, for self-reflection at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and encouraging young people to keep away from their social media, to not do that until they've put all that credit back in the bank. But I will just, if it's, I say it's not for us because we're a little more mature, is a little tool I teach people is called what I call the daily mantra. And it's asking ourselves, what did I wake up? The first thing that comes into my mind when I wake up in the morning. Okay. Now, for many people, sadly, in our world, we see, you know, oh gosh, we need more sleep. Oh, I wish I didn't go to bed so late. Oh, I know I've got this big thing on. It's negative, and young people particularly, a great travesty we've done to them is to pick up the phone and look at it. Be pulled into the world of the dumping ground of all these expectations and problems. But what do we wake up thinking? Now, probably this morning you woke up thinking, great, I'm on the summit. But often it is other things for people. Now, I encourage people to do a daily mantra because I have one. And until I change it, I won't be able to change it because it's become a habit. Okay. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that comes into my awareness, because I've trained myself, is what a grand and glorious day filled with love, opportunity, and potential. And then somewhere in the house, in the little eco cabin I'm in at the moment, a rescue animal will start wagging their tail and be so excited. Oh my gosh, she's getting up. And it reinforces it. Okay. Now, how did I create that? I went to a conference in LA many years ago and I learned the daily mantra. It has to be in the present tense, positive and personal. Mine's a statement, what a grand and glorious day. But it could be, I'm happy, I'm vibrant, I'm an excellent communicator in every day, in every way. I'm ushering the world into this vegan world. It is in the present tense, it's personal, it's as if it's already happening. We need to live in the moment of the wish fulfilled. Okay, so live the dream. And I remember, I think it was Celeste, I think it was in 2017, 18 it would have been. And we were at the Animal Rights Conference and I had been talked late into the night with a group of people and Jane Velez Mitchell and Celeste was talking about Vegan World 2026 or 2028. And he said, and you know, we were all excited. He said, live in the moment of the wish fulfilled. And I remember I got up after Melanie Joy, and Melanie, I have enormous respect for her great work, said, I'm sorry to tell everybody, but we're not going to see this in our lifetime. And I was watching the audience because I was on the stage. And I also saw Celeste in the audience. And he'd probably shake his head. And the whole energy in the room went down. And I couldn't wait. I was glad I was up next. And I came on next. And I said, well, I have to respectfully disagree with you, Melanie. And we will see a vegan world in our time. And it's not because I just want us to feel all warm and fuzzy, is because the vast majority of people are going to follow. We have to reach a tipping point, and it's living in the moment of the wish fulfilled. We are nearer people's reactions and resistance to, you know, oh, I'd never be vegan, or their reaction. They are so much nearer to this because if it didn't matter, they'd go, you do what you want to do and I'll do what I want to do. Collectively, we know it's returning to a place of living in harmony with ourselves and all living beings, including Mother Earth, in a way to return to what we have chosen to forget. So create a daily mantra if you don't have one, because we don't put a thing on our phone to remind ourselves, do we, to clean our teeth? Because like the banana peeling, our mums or fathers, or hopefully a good guardian said to us, clean your teeth and go to bed. Clean your teeth and go to bed. So what do? We go to the bathroom, we take the toothbrush, we do it. We don't remind ourselves. We can train our minds to, in a very conscious, present way, to not learn the habit of being negative, and we wouldn't be here if we felt that, I'm absolutely sure, but we are works in progress, okay? I know myself, I've done yoga for nearly 50 years. And when I first started practicing, I thought, oh, an hour is a bit long and it was all too much. And, and then I got in the car and traveled home. And so I thought, well, I'm going to apply this principle of habit formation. What is the minimum I could do each day? And I made the thing, I could do 5 to 10 minutes of yoga 3 to 4 times, 5 to 10 minutes of yoga each day or more, 3 to 4 times a week or more. Okay, so the minimum I've got to do is 5 minutes 2 times a day, 3 times. So it's 15 minutes or so. I think that's right, or 30. Okay. The thing is, if I go into the next week, I can't carry it forward. And that has kept me, because my body now tells me viscerally, I've learned it in my neurology, is I feel a bit achy. I need to move. Okay. And I don't have any pain in my body like people that do move, usually don't. And so we can do that with all sorts of things, whether it's reading books, half an hour religiously a day of half a chapter per day, every day is about 10 books a year. We could do that with everything. Watching 2 documentaries a month or more. Okay, remember, you can't move it forward. So now, why is this important, this strong foundation? Our health, our physical thing, our diet for the mind. What are we watching? I'm sure many people here, I've had a television for over 30 years. I do watch things, of course I do, but the doom and gloom, we really got to, but we do get an insight into what people are being brainwashed with, I have to say. Now, there were some people, of course, that we just feel absolute at ease with. It just flows, doesn't it? And we say, even if I'm having an off day, everything sort of works. And other people that rub us up the wrong way. It's actually, and we go, oh, I can't believe it. I started off well, but when I try and advocate to my sister-in-law, it's all these sort of problems. And it really is, there's something happening in the brain at that time. So particularly when we have history, we move back to it. Is when there's resentment, there's irritation, there's history, vegan or non-vegan, whatever the issues are, our blood tends to flow to the back of the brain, to our fight and flight area. We become closed-minded. We can't take constructive criticism. We're judgmental. We're defensive. When we are on top of our game, we're positive, we're generous. We are doing meditation. That was another one, of course, I didn't flip in. And we're learning to breathe, which is regulating our parasympathetic nervous system to bring us to ease. When we're open-minded, we can talk with compassion and care and choose the exquisite words we need to say to nudge them in the area along the continuum of awareness, really, but our blood needs to be at the front of the brain. Okay. Now, when someone comes across us, or we got a history with those people, often we're trying to be positive. We're logically and cognitively trying to make a difference, but our body knows best. We zip to the back of the brain. And so we need to learn and have practices of visualization and meditation and, breathing to pass this through our bodies. And also, because they're influencing us. If they're resentful and, oh, here come the vegans again, or you're the fussy one. And someone said to a client of mine the other day is, you people, wow, you people. And she immediately reacted in a negative way. What do you mean? I shared a different way in which she might respond to that. Okay, we'll look at that in a moment. But it's keeping our blood to the front of the brain, because if we can encourage people, it's called the contagion effect. And there's a lot of research out there in organizations and with children at school. They will gravitate to where the person who is influential, often, particularly with children, will move to. Or the leaders we like, the managers we liked at work, and the ones we didn't, there's things going on in the brain. And the people who are at the front of the brain are more empathic, listening, open-minded, and then people lean forward. Because we all know by this age, we can't kiss someone who's leaning away from us. Advocating is a bit like kissing. We need people to lean forward. Okay, so again, doing that work, that strong foundation brings us to a readiness, and then learning more about neuroscience and the contagion effect. If people are really interested in that, my colleagues have written a wonderful book called The Success Zone, which talks about blood flow in the brain. Not enough time to explain here at the moment. Okay, as I say, I'm really aware of time. So this links really into our ways of exquisite communication. Now, there is no shortage of training on communication. Okay, we just have to get online and follow Earthling Edge. Surely this calm educator, or Salesh in his way, he just advocates seamlessly, or other people we admire. But the reality is that's only part of the thing. All of them have in place an energy within them, within us, and all of it, I'm sure all of us here actually, have a way, we remember how we make people feel. But I'll share with you, and I'm almost at my end now, just to make some time available. I think I'm all right. 3 years ago, I left Sydney in Australia, and I moved for all sorts of reasons to mid New South Wales in a rural town I used my husband's name, and that ended up being that because effectively I've done 3 years of undercover work, not deliberately. I worked in an area, I lived in an area of cotton and wheat, and deliberately not animal agriculture. Although I can say just in those 3 years, I paid testimony to 512 slaughterhouse trucks that passed through the town at the time I was walking. And that's not even a town related to that. Wonderful form of advocacy, of course, because the non-vegan neighbor I was walking with said, oh, don't look, whatever. And I was able, at the end, she said, you know, Claire, I was brought up in a sheep farm. I can't look at it any different. I can't look at it the same way. All right. So, but the key thing, I think I was the person who mostly called the ranger. But it also taught me about the most extraordinary people, pre-vegans, really good people doing habits and traditions and hard slog and doing good work. But I'll tell you a quick story about this relationship-based advocacy, communication, because I regularly, I'm a swimmer, so I was swimming regularly, and people knew there was no secret that we were vegan, although I didn't actually say it immediately. They just, you know, in the local cafe, I only sat outside, had a flat white coffee and avocado on toast with no animal-based things on it. And they presumed we're just those vegetarian. We look quite healthy, but good for us. And one day at the swimming pool, the lady said, oh, Claire, I've got some free-range eggs. This was 2 years into being there. You know, I think she'd know the extension of this. And she said, would you like some? And I said, actually, no, I don't eat animals. Oh, they're not animals, they're eggs. And I said, well, actually, they belong to animals, and I don't eat animals or anything that's come from them. Oh, are you a vegan? And I said, it was appropriate to the situation. I don't know, what's a vegan? And she said, well, it's one of those people, you know, they don't eat eggs or cheese. And some of them don't even wear wool, which made, I'm sure, make us all smile. And I said, well, I suppose, you know, can I tell you? And it's important, because when we say, even in the middle of a conversation, can I tell you? Neuroscience tells us is the person could say no. So immediately they can't tell us we're preaching to them or telling them what to do. They've just given us permission. Okay? It's like, I said, can I? Yeah, of course you can. I said, well, it's really someone who does. I've discovered a lot, done a lot of homework. I've discovered that, I mean, I don't like, it was appropriate to her. What's happening, I said, so I do anything I do to not use or exploit animals. And one of them is not eating them. Oh, so she looked at my husband and said, I bet you're not a vegan. And he said, well, actually, I was vegan before she was. But this is important. She said, but you're really nice people. Okay. And that really shook me, because many people in their busy lives, their overstressed lives, they're just trying to make things cope in the middle of very harsh, you know, rural Australia and droughts and floods and everything else. Testimony to it all is pig dog hunters, been bailed up by those two. Is she actually had a perception, a view of what a vegan was. She said, but you're really nice. And she said, well, I suppose that's why you look much healthier than the rest of us. I'd like to think that she would have said, well, how could I do it too? And lose 100 kilos, which she needed to. But, you know, that's important to us. So how do we do this? What tools can we use? And I'm coming to an end here, really, is don't assume that's what myths of choice is, why people won't change and what we can do about it. Don't assume the myths, the unquestioned assumptions. People know what vegans are. They really don't. We can't shame them or blame them or raise our eyebrows and go, are we going to get another question about protein or calcium? It's much easier to resist someone when we think they're trying to change our diet than to actually reconnect with the enormous reaction everybody has to the heinous treatment of animals and to our planet. They do, the vast majority of people. All our research tells us, except they're not. Their actions are not linked with that. We've got to usher them back into that. So don't do all the expression to this. Don't do all the heavy lifting. All right, I didn't immediately, are you a vegan? Yes, I am. This is what it is, and I'll better get it in there quick. What do you mean by vegan? You know, or someone that says, oh, I could never be a vegan. How come? That's strange. What makes you say that? Well, our vegans are all unwell. Really? Oh, God, that's not good. What experience do you have of this? Get them to defend sometimes the nonsense that comes out of their mouth. Ask lots of questions. What do you mean by that? Give me an example. So when the person said, you people, oh, that's a funny term. What do you mean by you people? Make people accountable for what they're doing. We don't have to defend anything. We don't have to shame and blame and, you know, really, do I have to tell you what a vegan is? Don't we know by now? And there's a reason people resist. It's very, very uncomfortable. It is such an inconvenient truth. We have to be the soothsayers, the people that share this with people. But most of all, let's use trance breakers. I love trance breakers, and I'll give you a very quick one. And I am going to invite you to a free event of mine, actually, called Beyond Vystopia, a 3-day event, an hour a day. I'll give you that at the end. But I do a lot of this on communication and neuroscience and trance breakers and that foundation. This is a trance breaker. You may have heard it before, but I'm walking along with my current rendition of rescue animals, lots of dogs around me, and the person comes along, and they're holding a McDonald's burger, and they drop to the ground and go, "Oh, I love animals." Okay, there are many other ways which we can answer that. We could say, "Well, yeah, you only like some animals," and younger vegans often do, or we're reactive. What do you mean? What about those, etc.? You're eating a burger. But this is what I did. This is a trance breaker, and you can work your own out. It's when somebody's not expecting something, but it's also in that citizen-based advocacy, really, what is reasonable, having a conversation. So she drops to the ground and she says, "Oh, I love animals." And I go, "Oh, great, I love meeting vegans." "Oh, I'm not a vegan." I said, "Well, how does that work?" "Well, I'm not one of those." What did you, well, I'm one of those people that don't, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Do you know what a vegan is? "Yeah, it's one of those people that don't do X, Y." No, I said, "It's not. Can I tell you?" "Yeah, sure." Okay, the neuroscience again. Well, it's actually someone who does everything they can to not use or exploit animals. So when you told me you love them, I kind of assumed you didn't eat them. Okay, it was still conversational. We're talking about the dogs. I'm just this crazy person just talking about, that's a trance breaker. Okay, when the person says, I was introduced to a vegan psychologist once, and they said, "Well, I'm a carnivore." And I went, "Oh, what a funny way to respond to a job title." Yeah, and we can do that when we're grounded, when our blood is at the front of the brain. We're all works in progress. So if we want to make big things happen, we've got to create that strong foundation, keep revisiting it. I'm learning all the time to return to meditation. That's a big one for me. We've got to become self-detectives of our mindset, our self-talk. We've got to work on changing that. We've got to keep learning and growing and coming to events like this. And we've got to learn tools and techniques to break the trance, invite people back through relationship-based advocacy. So really, it is about, and if there's one thing I leave you with today, is decide what your little plastic spoon is, and encourage other people to do the little plastic spoon. So thank you. I hope I can now hear you. I know you can hear me. It's very quiet at my end.
Hello, Claire. Can you hear me?
Oh, no. This is going to be fun.
You have a.
Check from the chat. Let's do it like that. Gosh, we're almost in person. Hey, lovely, great. Of course, I'm looking at the chat. So I'm that 50s housewife, remember. Great. So I hope I've given you some food for thought there. Here we go. So if someone could just put things into the chat,
So
just as we're doing.
I know that it was said, raise your hand. You will just write them in the chat. She can't hear.
I come from the era when my mother said, well, it's either hairdressing or typing. And so I can actually type quite quick, which is good fun. This is good. I think this is working. Yeah. Could somebody just put hello or something so I can, let's move the thing. Here we go. Please raise your hand if you'd like to raise a question. Here we go. We've got one thing. If you think you can or you think you cannot, you're usually right. Henry Ford, was it, Celeste? Oh, gosh, I know Bob Proctor. One of the people think of Bob Proctor, he's late, no longer here. Yeah, exactly. So same thing, whether you think you can or you're not. So our beliefs really are things. There's a process called entrainment, actually, where, you know, it is about that tipping point. But I'll go for your questions later first, and maybe I'll bring that in, and I'll talk about it in Vistopia. Here we go. Will she join me on a hunger strike, potentially to the death, if our goals are not met? Wow, you're asking me that? Oh gosh, that's a big question on a Monday morning. I'm working with a man from KPMG and helping. Oh, let's have a look. I'll stop you putting any more in because it's going to wrap around. Just if you can hold it for a moment. I'm working with a man from KPMG. He's helping me keep alive on a hunger strike. Do you know anyone else in your area who's like him who'd help me with a really strict strategy? Gosh, we need 5-fold. Gosh, now you've got to bearing in mind this was probably 30 or 15 years ago. So unfortunately, I'm not someone at KPMG. But if you were to go onto LinkedIn or get a colleague or a grandchild or child, thank you for what you're doing. Each of us have to bring our gifts to the world and decide which way. Absolutely. It's I personally will have a quick look and see if there's anybody from KPMG, but certainly corporate leaders, vegan leaders in corporate management. So, wow, thank you for everything you're doing. Can you please click a little up carrot next to the mic button? Yep. Let's have a little next to the mic up thing. Yep, that's right. Here we go. From your computer. Yeah, I've been doing that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Default.
That any good, or have you lost me
Can
now?
you hear me?
Can you hear us? No.
Afraid to change it.
I think we've got that audio.
Oh, that's right. We don't want to lose her voice. And if
Hello.
no, it's in the chat.
No, I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on this if we don't. All right, here we go. Nothing good. That's which makes it so. Absolutely. But as Celeste said, we also need to take action. Dr. Will Tuttle spoke on an event of mine a little while back, and people were going, "What do you mean we don't just have to sit and meditate and do all this stuff and not do anything?" He said, "Absolutely not. But become focused, see where your area is to take action." Absolutely. A little song, a little dance, a little salsa down the. What was that? Isn't this wonderful? Beautiful. Down your pants. Oh, that's fun. Got a lot of.
Maybe we can make short questions.
Raise your hand. You take questions. Hi, Claire. And we've done that. Perhaps a little headphone. Take out the headphones. Yeah, we're.
Try that one. Please say something.
Hello, can you hear us now?
No.
No.
Gosh, isn't this a nuisance? Gosh, all of us as vegans, we see in groups and ask, we never bring, all of us have vegans, we see in groups or work, and they do not ask, do we never bring up veganism? Do we never bring up, I don't really understand the question there. All of us have pre-vegans, we see in groups. Sorry, it's a little bit like this, lovely people. Oh, it's flicking around if we put too many things in, I'm sorry. Oh, carrot, here we go. I'm just trying to catch up that one. All of us have pre-vegans we see in groups or work, but they do not. Do we never bring up veganism? There's always opportunities to bring up veganism, isn't there? It is about meeting people where they're at. I think I'm reading a wonderful book called The Joyful Case for Being Vegan, Matthew Halterman, just a wonderful book. And he refers to a lovely woman, I can't remember her name, it's in the book. We start with the visceral, we move to the cerebral, and then we move to the political. I'd like to examine that a little bit more, but there's always meet people where they're at. So if they're talking about what to eat, if they're talking about their grandchildren's health, I really examine that first and ask them questions. Let's get it out of them. Let's not immediately jump into the, so I would always answer things about, diet and health. People, I could never give up my cheese, people say, and go, well, yeah, I understand that. I like cheese. I particularly like macadamia cheese, and go, but actually, do you know there's actually a reason for that? Do you know what that is? You're very curious. I've become very curious, even though I've known for a very long time. And then they say, well, I just like the taste. Oh, no, actually, can I tell you? I said, I did some research on it recently. It was actually a long time ago. And I said, and there's actually an item in there called casomorphines. It's actually for the little baby calf to run after mum. So we kind of become addicted to it, which is it's pretty awful, actually, but it's weird, isn't it? That, I've ever thought about that. So I'm not this preachy vegan trying to make, and it's very conversational. So your medium with that is when I talk about, people say, I'm vegan for the environment. I'm not even sure what that means. We kind of know what it means, but it's, you have to slice off a little bit, or I'm vegan for the animals, but I don't care about me. It's not quite that. Is actually meet people. And I always segue it back. But, at the end of the day, if we could live happy and healthy lives without harming others, why wouldn't we? All of us, both you and I agree that this is wrong. Engage with people and using the word we. So definitely it's always there. Everything from people's practices to the new cashmere sweater they've brought, or the spray they just put in their garden to kill the insects or something. So it's always there. So we bring it, we ask questions, we, do those things. Can you click the little thing? It'll take less than 20 seconds and choose the correct mic. I can try, and I keep seeing this one. So I'm looking at microphone. There's two options here, the Canon Point LP definition audio controller, collect a speaker. And that's all it is. They're all the same. Audio options, I can link on there. Leave computer off. I don't want to do that. Computer audio connected.
Hello. Oh, now we can't hear her.
You still hear me? I hope so.
Now we can, yay. Okay.
Thing is when we fiddle around.
She can't hear us.
All right. Thank you. I hope that's been valuable. How do you mend fences over veganism? I wonder what we actually mean by that. how do we mend fences? I guess where there's disputes, or maybe with, I'm going to guess here, perhaps where there's been friction before, when we've refused to go to Thanksgiving, or we'll join later for coffee, or there's been a bit of a spat, is let's take a principle here. It's never too late. We've all gone away from a conversation about veganism or otherwise, and we go, gosh, it sits with you and you're irritated and you think, gosh, I should have said so-and-so, or it was not okay that they were sarcastic to me. We can always visit it. And I call it the ATOMS technique, which is ATOMS. You'll remember it. Firstly, we sit down with our assumptions. What are assumptions? So if we go to mend bridges, what do I think went on? What do I think they're thinking? What do I think I'm thinking? What do I assume is happening? Because these you're going to examine. And then the TOMS in the ATOMS is be tentative and open-minded while you're examining that. And you'd open up the thing. Always ask for time is, have you got 5 minutes? I'd like to talk about something that happened at Thanksgiving. Okay, or this happens every year. Yeah, sure. And if they're busy and you can see they're rushing around, make another time. But when you make time in a time way, they can't suddenly remember they've got a meeting to go to because they're not happy with the conversation. You go, yeah, no, it's fine. You go, okay. And say, look, we went Thanksgiving and this sort of happened. And I couldn't help thinking there was a time when maybe I got it wrong, but it seems to be every time that I bring up something about veganism, there's ridicule and there's laughing and there's whatever. And, maybe I'm getting it the wrong way. Is that how you see it? Because it kind of, and the person starts to get a little uncomfortable, and we examine that and we get them to explain it. And, I'm only joking. Well, it may be joking to you, but really, for me, what I've seen, it's really kind of laughing at cruelty. And I know you don't want to do that, but I suppose I'm giving you the principle. You take each of those assumptions. Hey, when you answered me like that, it came over as sarcastic. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, I'm glad you didn't, but can you see where I'm coming from? Is because when we raise things or go back to mend bridges, people can't unknow that you are a person who's prepared to put it on the line. Okay. And they're more likely to take more responsibility the next time you're in a thing and not laugh or not do whatever. I really am guessing here. Hey, let's have a look now. There's a lot of things coming through here. How long does it take neurologically to change a habit? Yep, that's a good one, Anya. Psychologists, therapists say about 30 days on average. However, for some of us, if something is very emotional or connected, the video we see, we can become vegan on the spot, for instance, and we can change something. The more emotional it is, the more connected it can take a much shorter time. Does it take 30 days? Does it take 10? Does it take 50? With the daily mantra, write it on a piece of paper, try that one, and write it in the present, the positive, and the personal. Have it next to your bed. You wake up, you read it out with real meaning. Okay, what a grand and glorious day filled with love, opportunity, and potential. You put it down. You wake up the next morning, you do it again. And then on the fourth day, you forget. So you start again. It's almost on average, it's going to be, and we can do that for a lot of things. Okay, around abundance and solving problems and all sorts of things. Because remember, we don't have a reminder to clean our teeth. It's a repeated thing till it becomes automatic. Now, I am looking, is there a friction between activists who deal face-to-face in outreach, which leverage psychology, and systemic activists who are observing? Actually, this is really important because, if there was one way that everybody knew how to do it, I can assure you we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we? Okay. There is a wonderful book called Doing Democracy. Whilst there's a lot of things I don't agree within some of the principles, but they talk about 4 different means of bringing about social change. I'm just trying to think who wrote that. Celeste, you might know it, or somebody else might. The key thing is that some people are rebels. They push the envelope, okay, and they are needed often because they will make other forms of animal rights campaigning more reasonable and palatable, because those people are, it's actually very interesting. But in and of itself, it can be very powerful. There are ones that actually work with behavioral change and systemic approaches and changing systemic things in society and dynamics, the social ecology. There are others that are policymakers. All of us are needed, I would suggest, and have a little look at that. But there is often a friction. And it's, as I say, if we knew the best way to do this, and we'd all be doing it. I personally came to both vegetarianism and veganism by watching graphic footage or knowing about it. Okay, for other people, it sends them 100 miles away. I actually became vegan before I even knew there was a name for it. It was quite interesting. I knew that there was no way I wanted to be part of something like this. Each of us are different and each person is different. So remember, there's lots of ways to actually move people in that direction. So is there a natural? I think there is, and let's be the elders here. Let's work to that. I'm not a plant-based food educator. Thank you, Elizabeth. I've been hosting wonderful culinary workshops in public library. Oh, fantastic. They love my food, but all my ex-they have no interest in giving up animal products. It seems that many people have been brainwashed. Is there no helping them? Well, never say never. If that person, I was once asked, somebody asked a question, and they said, if you tomorrow, somebody told you that you have a life-threatening illness, that you've got to give up all animal products, would you say, I can never change and, oh, well, I'm just going to die in the next 3 months? Or would you do anything you can do to do that? And of course, they would say. So that's someone who says, I could never do this. We know we can, okay? Influencing our family, there are so many influences around. There's such a history. People knew us before we knew ourselves. Your parents or grandparents knew when we tripped on the step. And now we're suddenly going to go back and challenge milk and cookies and chicken soup for the soul stuff, where, it's no interest. Constantly bring this back. When you give your family and they say, oh, this is lovely, I love this lentil lasagna, it's wonderful. And say, yeah, it's absolutely. Do you know the great news is that you can have all the taste and all the flavor and all the fun and all the celebration, and you come forward and no one has to suffer. Just keep saying that, maybe, and they go, oh, here you go again. No, yeah, it's an inconvenient truth. And then just walk away. But just keep planting the seeds. We are here sowing seeds. Never lose an opportunity to just give a chink of consciousness, because we never know when a person will change. I've got so many stories for you of people that back in the 60s were there with a child's program. It was the person who set up the Ohio Vegan Festival, I think it was, or Vegetarian Society. And he had long hair and he was a hippie. I think he was in the early 70s. And he had a board about animals. And it was in probably 8 years ago. He was at the Ohio conference. And someone said, I wish I'd become vegan so long ago. There was this guy back in the 70s and I saw him with a pushchair. And he said, that was me. So the seeds were planted. So do the same. But family, the resistance is often not to you, I would suggest. Love the idea of a mantra. I'll be asking you to come up with a mantra in closing ceremony. I wish I could hear it. Absolutely. We'll try. Bill Moyer, yeah, that's it. Nancy, thank you. Lovely to see you here, Nancy. You did some wonderful. We had a little exchange a while back on myths of choice. Natural freak, and we've got there. Thank you. We love this. We want to know about beyond Vystopia too. I'm sure I've missed some questions here for which I apologize. Yes, I run a series of events. I run 3-month coaching events and all sorts of things, but I do, as part of, all of our advocacy as we're giving to the world. I run, it used to be called Recovery, but I've changed this and I've changed the focus. I run free 3-day Beyond Vystopia masterclasses, an hour a day, when it's helping people navigate Vystopia, the anguish of being vegan in a not yet vegan world, and to set in place the tools and techniques. So if you'd like to sign up for that, I don't have a date for the 1-2, but you can join the wait list. So it would be, we can put it in a moment, veganpsychologist.com, easy to remember, /master-class-register. So while someone else is talking amongst themselves, I will just put that in for you.
Oh my goodness, hasn't this been wonderful? Okay.
I think that's it. Here we go. Here we go. Veganpsychologist.com, masterclass.register. And also it's a way of, if you resonate with anything I'm doing here, I give inspirational things out. And if you're on LinkedIn, I do a Beyond Vystopia newsletter. I really like LinkedIn. Vegans are all over the place. I started talking about what I was talking about, and tens of people have come forward and their profile doesn't say they're vegan. So we have far more people than 3%, I could assure you. Lovely. I think I need to stop. You're probably telling me to stop, actually. How long does it take? Here we go. All of us are pre-vegans. Please do that. Anya, lovely. Something wonderful, very inspiring. Appreciate a positive mantra. Good. We've done that. Natural friction. I'm just looking, have I been doing this? Thank you. All of you are just the most extraordinary people. And I think we're there. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can hear you.
Thank you. Oh, so my goodness. Go.
Please say something, Rebecca.
That was wonderful. No, well, bravo. Anyway, you were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.